Welcome to the second season of the e-commerce growth podcast. And in this season, we are going global. So today, we have Mohamed, who started his e-commerce business when even Google did not exist. Mohamed is building the e-commerce backbone of Rwanda and creating a blueprint for some other African nations with the government. Being an advocate of immersive e-commerce and conversational commerce, Mohamed is building the base of a global e-commerce movement right from Rwanda. Today, we'll learn how Mohamed is building the future of Rwanda through the e-commerce movement. Stay tuned. Hey Mohamed, good to have you in the e-commerce growth podcast.
Thank you, Shuvo. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor.
Yeah, so you have been into the e-commerce industry for so long time, and I have been trying to communicate you and getting you into the e-commerce growth podcast for a long time as well. So we know that you are basically running the show for the RwandaMart, but tell us a little bit about your journey of being an entrepreneur and getting into the e-commerce industry.
Yes, sure. So my e-commerce journey started when I was like 17, 18 years old, a little bit before the bubble, the 2001 bubble.
Yeah.
So I'm born in France and I grew up in France. And at that time, I was just entering university. We had two computers in the whole university. That's where it started. I started with a small directory. And then that directory, at that time, there was no Google, it was Alta Vista and some old legacy search engines. And at that time, I started making money with advertising, and it was good money. It was more than my scholarship. So that's where it started. I thought, e-commerce is actually something, and there are opportunities, and it's not that hard to get into it. And that's how I started. And from there, demand takes you a little bit left and right. And I had to learn a little bit more. And eventually, I changed my studies. I was doing physical education and sports. And then I really moved into computer sciences and did a master's degree in cross-border e-commerce and a PhD in mobile commerce. That's a little bit the academic story. And
yeah, that's a fascinating story. I think the entrance to e-commerce is much more easier right now. You have lots more computers and you can Google and you can set up your stores anytime. But I guess the competitions has become much tougher as well.
Indeed. Yeah, like at any level of e-commerce, competition is much harder, especially when it comes to, marketing and sales and then conversion. And making sure that you have a return on investment. It used to be much more easy back in the days, even though we had less tools. But overall, if you take the evolution of the tools that are coming into the market and then the complexification of e-commerce and the competitivity, the tools, they catch up for it. And I would say that you're about better off in this decade or in these years as when we started the early e-commerce phase.
Yeah, makes sense. Could you tell me a little bit about the work you currently do and the projects you are also working on?
Yes, sure. So the project is called Enabling the Future of E-commerce in Rwanda. It's a project that was initiated by the Rwandan government and the German government. So we have been engaged by the German corporation to lift up and better structure how digitization and e-commerce can help the whole economy here in Rwanda, especially after COVID hit. Everybody realized the opportunity cost of not having e-commerce working in your local government or in your local economy. So that's what we are doing, and there are two parameters or two main pillars that we are delivering. One is the marketplace RwandaMart that you saw. So RwandaMart.rw for the local market, but we're also preparing to launch the international marketplace. But there are so many analog things you need to get right before you go online. So we have a whole building with a number of machines, 3D printing farm, packaging machine, labeling machines, robotics, electric bikes, everything that you need in the back end to improve the product and services of our people and our sellers before we put them online. And also we have meeting rooms, training rooms. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the background, like beneath the top of the iceberg. And we're doing all that
like a massive operation.
Sorry.
I mean, that looks like massive operation.
It is a massive. It is massive because of its nature. It is here to serve a nation. It is here
Yep.
to serve a whole country. So we had to develop like, kind of a blueprint
Mm-hmm.
that can prove the concept and make a first cycle of transactions, and then that blueprint can be replicated in secondary cities or in elsewhere in the capital and in the regions, and even further in the continent or any country. That's what we are doing, and that's why it looks so intensive. It's because it's really a whole business model that we're establishing.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey into this, like the blueprint you're preparing. What are the things you're doing? What are the things that are moving good as well?
Yes, so that's a good question. You see, I can tell you what was not moving or what was the problem
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
I
Yep.
also encountered in many other countries. Is that sometimes you talk about e-commerce and you have two types of discussions that take away the real work. Yeah, the first discussion
Mm-hmm.
is when you discuss uh, what is the definition of e-commerce, privacy policy, data localization, and you scare the hell out of everyone. Uh, that's unfortunately what some discussions are happening at government level, policy level, but I think they hurt the SME courage or entrepreneurship spirit, because then they think, oh, it's so complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And the second point that where we realize that that we are wasting time, or let's say we're not benefiting of e-commerce fast enough, and things change so fast, is development. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of companies, a lot of web agencies, I noticed here and in many countries, they spend 1 year, 2 years to come up with an MVP. Coding it
Mm-hmm.
from scratch, reinventing the wheels, and then it's not right. So what we have like try to change is, before you get
Mm-hmm.
into complex development, can we do something quickly with what is available, like low code, no code, hit the market, we see if there is a response, and then we invest in more hardcore development. So those are the two main things that were, I think, slowing down development.
Yep.
And consequently, this is what worked in our project, is that we were able to shift the discussion from the technology to the trade. What
Mm-hmm.
do we have to sell, and are we able to sell it in a competitive way? Does the price match
Yep.
the quality or the perception of the quality? And that was the most significant shift, is to how can we solve customer support, logistics, payments, technology discussion, so that we can focus on sales and
Mm-hmm.
delivering something for the buyer and the customer.
So, how about that sales part? How is that growing right now? Because we know that Rwanda is a country that hasn't seen a lot of e commerce penetration yet. So, this is sort of a pioneer for the country and for the people as well. So, in your opinion, how is this growing?
So we have a word for that. We kind of say that e-commerce in Rwanda is still in embryo phase. It's not yet
Mm-hmm.
born. It's still like a baby in the. And the reason is that, and it's a little bit different in every country, yeah. But Rwanda is a landlocked country. It's a very small
Mm-hmm.
market,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't have those big players that come in, big software providers, big development companies, marketing companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's 8 million people and a very small country. Um, So we say that it's in embryo, and there is something that all of us in the community need to solve, is that maybe in Bangladesh or maybe in Western Europe or the West in general, when people go online to buy, they know that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
find what they want. It will be delivered fast, and it will be actually cheaper than buying it offline.
Yep.
Here in Rwanda is the reverse. When you see something online, you order it, it's not there. They don't have stock, so it's more like drop shipping or finding it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Second, it's more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the challenge we have in Rwanda, and actually in many African countries where I've worked, and Southeast
Mm-hmm.
Asian countries, is that you have, there is like a battle going on in the background between the informal market and the formal market. So you always have
Yep.
sellers that sell things without paying VAT. They don't have companies. That, you know how it is. People
Yep.
jump on Facebook, WhatsApp, and they make good sales, but they're not formalized. And then you have the guys like us. We cannot escape. Everything is recorded, so we
Yes.
have to add VAT, transaction fees, put in what we pay in accounting, and that makes e-commerce not a good deal for the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are in Rwanda, and I think it's the same in Uganda, in BRC and neighboring countries. And we believe, and what we are doing, Shuvo, to answer your questions, is that we haven't launched officially yet. We were just given a mandate to do optimization of processes. So we've launched like in a beta with different partners, and we will launch in maybe 2 or 3 months. And we also studied, if we launch, what is our offer? And we cannot kick off e-commerce unless we can offer free shipping, free and fast shipping, and like super responsive customer support. Because the trust from the consumers to e-commerce is not there here, at least, and now. Sorry, I went a bit all around, but sometimes...
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, as I can understand from your conversation as well, you are basically building the infrastructure of e-commerce first. Once the infrastructure is there, I think you can move ahead with other growth tactics and whatnot.
Exactly, yeah.
So thinking about that, I mean, building the infrastructure, this is something that has been done in many other countries as well, right? Because, like Western countries, European countries, e-commerce has been there for a long time. So what are the struggles you are currently facing in building the infrastructure in Rwanda, or even what are the things you have faced in other African countries as well?
Yeah, we could say mainly all developing countries. I think the common point in between most of the people that wanted to go in e-commerce and we were working with is that they didn't have enough margins on their products or services, to cater for payment fees, logistics, and so on. So margins is really a big issue, especially here in Rwanda. Many entrepreneurs have not yet increased, how we call it, the value perception of their offer. So you may have a good product, but then you didn't create the good content, good video, like you're doing, creating content to increase the value of your software or your experience. And that's one thing that we are investing a lot on, so that we can give a chance to increase the margins, so that then once it goes online, it can sell and people can feel that value.
Yeah, makes sense. Talking about your struggle, we can think about the best part as well. So you have been into so many countries and you have been working with e-commerce for a long time. So what is maybe the best thing you have noticed that's changing in the e-commerce industries among these countries?
So I'll twist a bit your question, if you don't mind.
No worries.
I would say that the change is driven by the consumers, by the market. So when you look at the products we have here in Rwanda, and I've been to Bangladesh and also the subcontinent, working with many enterprises, is that if you look at especially exports, you have quite a large crowd of buyers in Europe, in America, Australia, China, everywhere. They want direct contact with their sellers, with the producers. They want to feel a connection. And they're saying, we're ready to pay a premium if you bring your stuff to us. And what I mean by bring your stuff to us is that you're responsive in our time zone, in our language, in our currency, with our invoicing. Bring your offer close to us. And in my experience, at least in the last, let's say, 10 years that I've been doing this development work, whatever we bring from Africa or Southeast Asia to anywhere, it sells. It really sells, because there's no such things readily available there. So when you see a beautiful handmade lamp made of bamboo from Rwanda, and you bring it anywhere in America, there's only 100 units, they will go fast. We've done that also with the handmade fountains with mosaic from Morocco to Switzerland. They disappeared very fast. So that's, I think, the best. There is a huge opportunity for producers in developing countries to bring their offer to this buying community that is begging for direct connection.
All right. So instead of thinking about one single country, you're thinking about the whole world and trying to make sure that the buyers and the suppliers get what they need.
Indeed.
So I think that's the fascinating part.
Exactly. And like sometimes you talk to people and they think, who would want my product? And so many of us are doing it here because they just look at the country where they are, the city. They don't realize that commodity is super rare in other places.
Exactly.
And it stands a chance to be sold.
And your current project, RwandaMart, does it also involve that part? I mean, are you going to change the economy of the country throughout this process?
Yeah, maybe we cannot claim that we can change the whole economy, but we can show a direction for the government and the private sector to move on.
Mhm.
So what we are advocating is that there is an opportunity that is undeniable. Yeah, people
Yep.
want to buy
Yep.
stuff from Rwanda, locally
Mhm.
and abroad. But then when you see small entrepreneurs together, sorry, alone, they don't stand a chance with the fixed cost, with the compliance, you know. So we're saying
Mhm.
the best low-hanging fruit is consolidation. Can we
Mhm.
consolidate and have, and that's what we do. We are consolidating. RwandaMart is a data consolidation. We have a catalog.
Mhm.
Other people
Mhm.
may pull from it and sell elsewhere on other channels. So consolidation is what we are pushing and what we believe can be the breakthrough.
Yep, makes sense. I think, um, in fact, so far, when you're talking about this evolution, this consolidation, so far, what sort of evolution or change in the e-commerce industry have you seen that might be the most successful and which you think will be prevailing in the future? Because you know the e-commerce industry is changing rapidly. In fact, whatever you're currently doing in Rwanda, the same thing hasn't been done in other countries as well, or maybe a part of that has been done as well. So, but what are the things that you are mostly excited about in e-commerce, and in your opinion, are going to prevail in the future as well?
Yes, I think there are three themes that we are using extensively, although it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily fully ready.
Mm-hmm.
But the first theme is immersive commerce. So
Mm-hmm.
immersive commerce is how can we, using virtual reality, augmented reality, 360 degrees photos and footage, how can we immerse the buyers into the
Mm-hmm.
life of the producer? Yeah, and 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 you know, transfer so much knowledge because it's a virtual environment than reading a text. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this rich and immersive media is really a chance for everyone to leap forward. The second opportunity and exciting thing that we are working with is automation. And you guys are also
Mm-hmm.
including automation with NLP and everything with the chatbots. So automation is a fantastic tool and a fantastic advantage, especially for the small players, because if they
Mm-hmm.
can automate, they don't need to have more capital and grow their
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure or human resources. They can use automation to be more competitive, and then once they make money, they can properly hire and so on. So automation is really kind of, in some instances, even a saver in our context. And the last one, which is probably the less mature yet, let's say, for hands-on application, is artificial intelligence. And the way we're using it at the moment is mainly for search engine optimization, especially when you're a country where English is not the first language, but then English is the international language. So we use AI to create content, SEO
Mm-hmm.
compatible content. So we like mix between the entrepreneur who gives a little bit, and then the AI, takes
Mm-hmm.
over and at least create 300 words or 500 words. So these are the three, I think, spear leading technologies or evolutions that are making e-commerce much, much better in our context.
Yep. Yeah, I think that completely makes sense. And also, what we are thinking and what we are seeing as well, that even though you have e-commerce or people have e-commerce, the new generation is much more about experience, like the way you talked about immersive experience. The same way we are seeing that the new generation is also thinking about building a bond, not just buying things. Again, I can take your context as well. Whenever they are buying products, they are thinking about where this is coming from. That's how they're creating the bond. And one of the ways we are seeing of creating the bond is to communicate. So what we're also seeing that when you are building an e-commerce, all the new buyers, people that are buying, they're trying to have a conversation with you first, like maybe asking about the product quality, maybe asking about the product sources, and a few other things. So we believe that in terms of e-commerce experience, conversational commerce is also a tool or also a set that's going to be prevailing in the future. So what's your thought in terms of conversational commerce, or let's say providing the best customer experience or support to your end customers as well?
Yes, I love this sentence very much, conversational commerce. And I can give you
So do
like a
we.
long, sorry?
I mean, so do we.
Indeed, yeah, and
We love the word as well. Yeah.
you use it very well. One element that is interesting, when you look at technology from you step back and you look at technology and what it does. it actually just reproduces what the ancient trade was, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So in ancient trade, the natural trade is that before you buy, you converse. When you go to like even just 20 years ago, 50 years ago in Morocco or in Africa or in India or Bangladesh, you go to the market, you touch the fruits, you talk to the seller. Hey, who are you? What's your name? Where does it come from? So it was inevitably a conversational, communicative experience, what we call commerce. So for me, when a technology is here to accommodate or to enhance a natural phenomenon, a natural process, then you're right. You're in the right area. And actually, when I present, my list to our stakeholders and other people here, I don't try to explain it as a customer support live chat. I just say conversational commerce. That's how you can increase sales. That's how you can increase satisfaction. And that's how you can get direct feedbacks, because there are some other learnings that sometimes we don't put money value on them, but they are very valuable. So when you are when you understand conversational commerce, you may be able to understand that buyers, they prefer red, they prefer more sweet. You pick up that, so that you can, in reverse, using data, change your product or your service to better match the market. That's very powerful.
Yep.
And it can be all achieved if we, how you call it, Shuvo. If I had to resume what we're doing in Rwanda and elsewhere, oftentimes we find ourselves just trying to show people a mentality shift, a paradigm shift, because it's only here. Once you understand this conversational commerce, then you don't need so much teaching, because I'm going to make money. Therefore, I dive into this. And that was our experience, even with our close partners, once we started to use your tool. And I think you guys are really on the right track.
Exactly. Thank you for all the good work. So now a little bit trying to use your experience. So we have seen all the new buys in the e-commerce industries and all the newcomers. They're trying to compete with new products as well, and trying to get the pie of the market as well. So as a veteran e-commerce person, so what will be maybe your top tips to all these newcomers on their own growth? Like, how can they effectively grow their own e-commerce in the coming days?
Yes, that's a tough question, but let me think how I could explain my take on it. So at first sight, we may be worried that all these new e-commerce players may find a crowded market. That could be a first fear. But then actually, when you've been long enough in this industry, you understand that e-commerce actually has a lot of verticals and a lot of horizontals and parallel markets. And when one market is saturated, another one opens up. And I would say that, let's say in the latest evolution phase of e-commerce, we're now turning into a modus operandi, which is, how would they call it, click to mortar. So like 10 years ago, it was mortar to click, and now it's click to mortar. So when Amazon buys physical distribution stores, I think this is what is happening right now, and what opens up a bigger e-commerce market, let's say. But even the semantic is a bit deceptive or confusing. So myself, I don't say that I'm an e-commerce specialist, because e-commerce doesn't exist. We try to call it commerce e. It's commerce. It's just commerce, and then there is an electronic part of it. And when you think e-commerce, then the market suddenly is like, boom, much bigger. And the second point where I think e-commerce is going to find much more growth is in geo-localized e-commerce, where you use technology not to reach the client that are 5,000 miles away, but 5 miles away. Sometimes there is a big enough market that is not addressed. They don't want to wait. And like you said, people, they want to converse, and they need to converse when they're awake together in the same time zone, where they speak the same language. So you come back to this proximity where technology and e-commerce actually opens up the nearby market. And I think that's also a big chunk of market that is hidden in how you call it, in plain sight.
Yep. I think that completely makes sense. Well, thank you, Mohammed, for your time. It has been a very insightful discussion, and thank you for in the e-commerce growth podcast as well. We look forward to have another chat with you in the coming future.
Sure, anytime, Shuvo, and thank you for the opportunity. You guys are doing a good job. Please continue.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too, Shuvo. Take care.